Hello everyone. Here we share our experience in shifting to emergency remote teaching during the COVID-19 pandemic, as we realize that this digital transformation using the available resources can be structured into a framework or a toolkit, and we are calling it DigEm Edu Framework. The COVID-19 pandemic has forced the academic institutions to suspend all the face-to-face teaching and learning activities and immediately adopt the fully online modes of instruction. Therefore, educators need quick, innovative solutions to ensure the smooth transition to remote teaching while continue providing students with the same learning experience pre-pandemic. However, switching to remote teaching during this unprecedented circumstance poses some challenges to the educators. One of the main challenges is the need to immediately switch to remote teaching midway during the semester with limited time to plan carefully. Next, it will also be a challenge for those with limited online teaching experience. It will also be a great challenge for educators to plan remote teaching for courses which have not been taught online before. It will also be very taxing for educators to immediately switch to remote teaching when there is no pre-existing material customized for online instruction. And lastly, without any established technological infrastructure, this will also hinder a smooth transition towards remote teaching. After going through the experience of having to switch abruptly to remote teaching, we have discovered that there are a few points that we need or all the educators need to take into consideration when designing or planning for a remote teaching. The first point that should be within the framework or within a toolkit in designing a remote teaching will be communication, and this will include where and how students will get all the information as well as materials related to the subject. Second will be to find out about what are the relevant and readily available technology that will suit the teaching and learning activities for the particular subject or module. Third will be to plan the assessment that can really assess the module learning outcome and to plan what are the tools that will be used to carry out the assessment. Next will be to think about the feedback, and this will be the feedback to be given to students and feedback to be gathered from students so that future improvements can be made. And lastly, it is very important not to forget about this very important component, which is human touch. As we know, when students are undergoing the teaching and learning activities remotely or fully virtually, they have limited human contact and human communication. And this may lead to some other problems, which include social isolation. So therefore, when designing the remote learning and teaching activities, it is important to make sure that the human touch component is also there. And here we present the shifting to emergency remote teaching due to the COVID-19 pandemic, digital transformation of a first-year pharmacy module following the DigEm Edu Framework. This is an example of a first-year pharmacy module whereby it has 4 learning outcomes, and in this module, aspects related to microbiology, biochemistry, and immunology will be covered. Therefore, all the MLOs are basically related to this field of studies. And it is also to cover the aspect of not only discipline-specific knowledge, but also social competencies and lifelong learning. The assessment components of this module include 40% of final examination, 20% of mid-semester tests, 20% of practical reports, and 20% of group presentation. Subsequently, we will see how the DigEm Edu framework being used to plan for the assessment for this module. As we mentioned previously, communication is one of the important components when designing for remote teaching. Therefore, it is very important for students to have one site or one-stop center for them to get all the information related to the module. And here is an example of a Moodle used in this module where all the lecture notes, pre-recorded videos and all the information related to the module are being stored here, and all students have access to this site. To further enhance communication, a class representative also can be appointed so that it will be easier for the class rep to communicate with their classmates to inform them of any new information being updated, because some of the students may not often check their emails or go through their Moodle site. Emergency switching to remote teaching is also about using the available resources, and as we know, communicating with students is very important at this point of time. Therefore, it will also be very useful to use the common tools that for communication, for example, Telegram, because at times when each individual student asks the lecturers or their instructors questions via email, some of the questions may be redundant. So this question can all be collated by the lecturer and shared to one medium, for example, Telegram. For synchronous session, either for tutorial or lecture session, readily available and simple video conferencing tools such as Zoom and Microsoft Teams were used in this module. Feedback being given to students individually and to add that human touch or to have some sort of connection to give students that human touch, the feedback given to students was the voice feedback. So using the TigEm, which is the platform that we use to check for plagiarism, the same tool can also be used to give feedback to students. And in addition to that, voice feedback can also be given to students. So by using the voice feedback, it sort of adds some sort of like a human touch in the feedback session. Next, as part of the assessment, a virtual whiteboard is also being used. It is a free platform called MiroBoard, where using the MiroBoard, students not only can brainstorm together as a group, they can add any type of media on the board, either images, videos, charts, sticky notes, and in addition to that, there's also the chat function for students to discuss and communicate among themselves. So this will also promote communication among the students, and the instructor or the lecturers can also come in and give comments and observe what each group member has contributed towards the group discussion. And using the same virtual whiteboard, they can use it to present for their final presentation. A closed-book exam can be used to determine whether students have memorized certain information and whether they can reproduce or apply this knowledge. And this will be one of the best methods for first-year students. So for this module, to conduct the closed-book examination online, Safe Exam Browser coupled with online quiz in Moodle platform, as well as invigilation using Zoom was adopted. Safe Exam Browser is a web browser environment to carry out e-assessment safely. This software turns any computer temporarily into a secure workstation. This is to avoid students from searching for the information online and to avoid students from referring to any books around them. They are also being invigilated via. To ensure the smooth running of online examinations, students will be provided with guidelines. And prior to the examination date, there were mock examination whereby during this session, students will be taught as to how would be the best way for them to position their camera so to facilitate the invigilators during the examination. Here are some of the feedback from students regarding the implementation of remote teaching for this module. COVID-19 pandemic has impacted educators and students across the world. Therefore, having a framework to assist with the emergency digital transformation using the available resources will help for a smooth transition of teaching and learning activities remotely. With DigEm Edu framework, now everyone can do remote teaching.